What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason and Joe here. It's the big one, our favorite albums of the year. One of my favorite videos that we do every year. This is the second time that we are doing this as a duo. Last year, Cram bailed in early December. So we changed the format. We were doing a top 10 with when Cram was here. But we expanded to top 25s. And actually, if you watched last year, you may remember we did a full top 100. We did 100 to 26, and then we did our top 25s together. This year, we are reversing that. We're going to present the top 25 first, and then maybe in a week or so, we'll have videos for our 100 to 26. 2024 was I'd say about an average year, maybe even slightly below. I was feeling a little more down on it. The re-listens and getting the list in order, it kind of brought it up in my opinion a little bit, but I still don't think it's like an amazing year by any means. Pretty average, but even an average year has a lot of good music in it. So
Well, you listen to every album that came out this year, if my numbers are correct. So you would know. I mean, if anyone knows the good stuff that came out this year, you'd think it would be you. How many did you listen to in all?
shattered my record from last year. I think I got to 434 is the final number.
Big time. I'm about half of that. 221 was my. I think it's 222. I think there's an album that I forgot to list that I'll eventually remember. So we'll say a nice even 222 for the year, which I believe is my all-time high. So it's good. I mean, I thought it was a good year. I thought it similar to pretty much, I don't know, the last 17 years or so, where there's plenty of good stuff. Not a lot of things that are blowing my mind and gonna make my top, 500 all time. Doubtful. But plenty of good stuff to be found. I ended up with like 66 4-star or above albums. So that's a pretty solid year. 66, a little more than a quarter, close to a third of the albums I listened to, I thought were quite good and would return to, which is the litmus test for the 4-star ranking.
Yeah, I am at 104 of those. So best best ever. First time I think I ever first year with a full top 100 of 4-star and up. Number 25 for me, gonna kick things off with one of my favorite country albums of the year. I've got Shooting Star by Benjamin Todd. To be exact, it's my second favorite country record of the year. There's one more to come. It's got a super classic sound. If you aren't aware, he's the frontman of the Lost Dog Street Band. He's known for doing like poetic, piercing songwriting in the folk tradition. And he wanted to step out on his own and prove he could make an elite country record. And I'd say that is what he did. It was produced by Andrea Tokic, who produces a lot of stuff. Margaret Price, Alabama Shakes, Langhorne Slim, many others. He covers a variety of like classic country styles across the album. You've got some Western swing on Satisfied with Your Love. You got a little bit of like the classic Nashville sound with a bunch of backing vocals on a song like One Last Time, which is a duet with Sierra Farrell. You also have a little bit of the Bakersfield sound here on the track Mary Could You. I think it's all tied together really well by his like really clear piercing vocals. His voice I think is really distinct, direct, and emotionally vulnerable throughout. So yeah, if you like country, which I don't know how many of our viewers do, but that would be one to go check out for sure.
All right, that sounds pretty good. I have not heard of him or that album, but that's pretty much par for the course for many of these picks from you. But I do like country, and I didn't think it was a great year for country, so maybe I just missed the good stuff. My number 25, I'm gonna go with an artist that doesn't often make my top 25s, and that's Jack White. I like Jack White. I like the White Stripes, but as we've seen many times on this channel, they're not like upper echelon type band for me. But I really do like his album from this year, No Name. it's just back to basics. And this, in an era where rock is really not like comprising most of my albums anymore, it's nice to just have like a fast, furious, loud guitars, loud vocals, kind of, on the verge of the edge of sanity, getting a little punk, a little garage, just rocking out. He's not trying to be cutesy. He's not trying to be cutting edge. None of that like weird guitar alchemy that he does sometimes. It's just like balls to the wall, rock and roll. Some really good tracks like That's How I'm Feeling, and Tonight Was a Long Time Ago, which has a great chorus. It might be the catchiest thing he's written since the White Stripes. Just a good album, a solid album. Um, yeah, no, it kind of surprised me at how good it was. And I've liked some of his solo stuff, but always kind of left me wanting. But I think the emphasis on just rocking out really is playing to his strengths on this one.
Been getting a lot of comments on that video review we did late for that record, telling us that we need to be more enthusiastic. But here it is, making your top 25.
Woo! Yeah, I mean, I gave it 4 stars when we reviewed it. I liked it. I'm not gonna fake my enthusiasm. Um,
My number 24 is an album called Make It Up by a band called Feet, in all caps. It reminds me a lot of like late 90s, early 2000s stuff. Bands like Superdrag and Phantom Planet and Nada Surf. Maybe some of the more buoyant and upbeat Britpop stuff as well. Just really upbeat, catchy rock music. Not quite what you would call power pop. It's got like some indie spirit and like some punk ethos, but it's also not what you would consider pop punk either. Not the most revolutionary record of 2024, but just hooks upon hooks. It's super fun. A bunch of songs from this record have been getting stuck in my head. It's got really great production from Andy Savers, who is known for producing the debut album for Black Country New Road. And I think it's really just like great rock band arranging on this record, which you say arranging, it's often associated with like orchestral elements, but I think it's important to have good arranging in all contexts. And I think everyone here is like interlocking and their parts all fit together. And the guitars are like doing interesting things. They're not always doubling each other and they stay out of each other's way. And there's like great push and pull to the rhythm section and all of that stuff. So yeah, just a really good, fun rock record.
Another one never even heard of that band. Never crossed the Discord, I don't think. I don't remember anyone talking about it.
We'll get to something you've heard of in a
Eventually,
few picks.
hopefully. Um, Here's another artist that, again, not that high on in the past. And this was a late riser for me. Wasn't really on my radar until I don't even know what kind of popped her back into my mind. Maybe listening to my like extended playlist of best songs. And then I went back through her album. This Is How Tomorrow Moves by Biba Doobie. Biba Doobie, yes. Fun to say, fun to listen to. And I've never really been in love with any of her work. It always felt a little kiddie, kind of teeny bopper. But I think here on her third album, she kind of grows up, gets a little more adult. A great 90s, late 90s, early 2000s feel to the music, very guitar forward, very don't bore us, get to the chorus kind of stuff. Produced by Rick Rubin, which is interesting. I don't know if I would have been able to, you know, guess that just from listening to it. He pretty much just lets her do her thing. The lead single, Take a Bite, is like Vanessa Carlton, Jewel, kind of like, strong female singer-songwriter type. A little more guitar on it though. But some of the other stuff reminds me of like Nada Surf and like those late 90s, early 2000s. Sort of power pop, sort of alternative, Rooney, Weezer. It's just, good, strong chorus music, very melodic. Some nice guitar solos on it. Just a good, strong album from her. So I'm definitely gonna be watching to see where she goes with it after this.
Interesting. That is one I did not listen to.
Yeah, it surprised me. So because everyone always said like, oh yeah, she's channeling the 90s, blah blah blah. And I was like, not really. But now I think she finally got it.
Number 23 for me is a record called Handle with Care by Love Fiend. This is a rock record that feels like it was ripped right out of the late 70s or early 80s. It's really punky and angular, but not so much that I think even Joe would have an issue with it. It's really kind of like shiny and new wave as well. A lot of Cars worship on this record, especially in the Rick Ocasek-esque vocals and really like bright synth lead hooks. There's a lot of ripping sax on the record as well, something the Cars don't employ, but they do quite a bit on this record. The songs are funny, they're irreverent. They're a band that doesn't seem to take themselves too seriously. Their band bio hilariously points out that the band members are all raised in small towns by parents who love them. And yeah, it's just a record great for driving. Sounds great cranked up. It just kind of rips. It's a good one.
All right, number 23 is one of your least favorite of the year. It's Fabiana Palladino, self-titled. She is, yes, the daughter of bass legend Pino Palladino. And this one's been kind of marinating for a while, but worth the wait, in my opinion. Really strong 80s influence, but it's like late 80s pop, Janet Jackson, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis type low-key synths. The production isn't overwhelming. It's not, you know, layered and full. It's kind of sparse and minimalistic, which is nice. Very much R&B drawn, little Prince on there. But also some stuff maybe that channels Carly Rae Jepsen's emotion a little bit. And it's a very mature, very sparse, full of space kind of album. But it doesn't sound like a retro act, which I think is important. It sounds like something kind of fresh and new, a different part of the 80s to channel from. And some real strong songs. Can You Look in the Mirror is great. Just a very good, not the most obvious hooks on it, but you let it kind of leak into your brain and it gets in there and it just never leaves.
Next up for me is one that I know you've heard of, but whether or not you remember is another thing. I talked about this on one of our best so far videos. The record is Lurleen by Warren Tin, the project of Warner Hyatt. And it is all him. I think he did all the recording. He records to tape, like out in his back shed, and he played all the instruments on the record. And to me, it's a record that feels very representative of like a new wave of indie rock that's coming. And it's been very interesting to me to see how Gen Z and younger indie acts are kind of recontextualizing and rearranging the sounds of the past. And, it's, I think, pretty well documented at this point that younger folk have a very strong affinity for shoegaze. And there's some of that influence here, especially on a track like Big Wheels, which also has kind of like a Stephen Malkmus-esque melody. But there's a lot of other reference points as well. Breakdown, I think, sounds a bit like a Modest Mouse outtake. There's some dream pop and indie folk and some psychedelic swirls and country rock and things like that. It's all pulled together in a really satisfying and unified way. On the Bandcamp page for the record, he says that it's kind of he thought of it as like a burned CD, where it's like all over the place, but it's curated in a thoughtful way. It's all recorded to tape. Sounds really cool. Yeah, I think he's Gen Z. He's like in his mid-20s, I believe, but he might be on the cusp. But yeah, based on this and a bunch of other records this year, I think the kids are all right.
Remains to be seen. My number 22, definitely not a kids album. This is mom rock. I've coined a new term. It's mom rock, and it's folk rock. It's a little louder, a little bigger. It's the counterpoint to dad rock. It's Rosalie's Bite Down. It's folk rock. It's Americana, but she's working with a really crack band on this. Sometimes they feel like Tuskegee Fleetwood Mac. My Kind has this great like ragged kind of lurching shuffle to it. And then sometimes they sound like Crazy Horse with some cool, long, drawn out feed book passages. She has not a plain voice, but a very mature adult voice. She's not going for the kids vote here, the tweens, the TikToks. She is just, full of learned experience and she's getting them out there and it feels like, late 30s and not a 15-year-old's album, which is nice and refreshing. And yeah, it's just a strong folk rock album. Not even folk rock, it's a misnomer. It's mom rock. It's a strong mom rock album from probably a mom, Rosalie. She seems like a mom.
I'm actually a little surprised that that is that low. I thought I had that kind of pegged for top 10 for you.
There's been a lot of albums. I mean, things are bumping around, jumping around. You never know.
Yeah, same here. This is one that bounced around and actually fell a bit, but no fault of its own. I just had this surge of records come screaming towards the top of my list in the late stages. My number 21 is Dream Pictures by Andrew Combs. He's a favorite artist of mine. He's usually floating around my top albums somewhere anytime he puts out an album. As of late, I gotta say he's done a fantastic job, I think, of, all of his records sound like him, but he's done a really good job of giving each record its own like distinct identity. And this one is co-produced between Combs and his collaborator Don Belay, performed entirely by the two of them and Spencer Cullum Jr. on pedal steel. It's a pretty quiet, reflective, kind of late night record, really moody, a lot of atmosphere. You have Combs' usual great songs and great voice. It's amazingly well recorded, and there's just enough like experimentation going on and adventurousness to keep it a little bit exciting. You can check out the Guitar Freak Out on a song like To Love for evidence of that. But yeah, just a really nice, another feather in the cap of Andrew Combs' great discography.
Well, I know who Andrew Combs is, but I did not listen to that one. My number 21, I got a band, Mannequin Pussy. The album I Got Heaven. Very raw 90s style alternative rock slash Riot Girl. Can be abrasive at times, sounding like Hole, the band from the 90s, you know them. But can also be very pretty, like Hole, band from the 90s. Probably know them. But it's more than that. There's flex, there's little pieces of the current indie rock crop that jump in there. There's moments of peace between the chaos and anger. But even then, like you can kind of hear this hum of like destruction lying dormant just underneath the surface. Some great lyrics. Contender of the best lyrics of the year on the opener, I Got Heaven. Marissa Missy DeBiase sings, and what if Jesus himself blank my blanking blank? It is hot. You can't say that on the internet, but you can look it up. I Got Heaven. Just search lyrics. I Got Heaven. Probably don't even want to search Mannequin Pussy if you're at work. Probably just wait till you're at home to do that one. Can get bad. That can get real bad.
All right, number 20 for me is the album City Life by a band called The Medium. They're a Nashville group. It's their third record, their first one that they self-produced with a little bit of help from George Rezik and friend of the channel, Johnny Hobson. They're doing a lot of stuff I love here. It's kind of like late 60s, early 70s throwback sound, really dry production, a lot of great harmonies, great classic songwriting, ranging in topics from the personal to the death of Dale Earnhardt on the track The Day Dale Died. But what keeps pulling me back to the record and what I find the most captivating about it is the voice of the lead singer, Shane Perry. Just a really unique voice, really cool vibrato, and it records really well, and it sits in these super dry mixes in such a cool way. I think it doubles really well. It takes harmonies really well. Just really drawn to the voice. I mean, without great songs, it wouldn't be a great record. So, I mean, the songs are fantastic, but yeah, that voice really makes it stand out this year. It won't be for everyone. It is a little bit of a strange vocal, but I love it. And yeah, check it out.
Well, you're just rattling off these albums that I've just never even heard of. My number 20, we're gonna get a little metal on the channel with Opeth, The Last Will and Testament. Opeth, everyone, I feel like everyone thinks that I love Opeth, but I really haven't gotten into Opeth. They're kind of one of my blind spots when it comes to metal, especially metal in the 21st century. So I don't know how like Opeth fans feel about this one, and I don't want to offend them or make them mad because they seem scary, and they are legion in number. So I don't know if this is considered like a great Opeth album, but I think it's a very good album. I appreciate the melodic and progressive aspects of the sound that really come to the forefront. There are some of the abrasive death metal vocals here and there, but they're balanced really well by, regular singing. It's very orchestral, very meticulously arranged, progressive. It's not just slash and burn type death metal. It's very sort of organized and everything in the right place. Um, the guitar, Michael Ackerfeld, love his guitar playing, very melodic all over the place. There's a story here, family, dead patriarch, kind of Knives Out vibes I'm getting from it. But all of that is just trappings for the main course, which is the progressive metal music, which they pull off really well, especially the last track, um, A Story Never Told, which really brings everything all together, and some great guitar to end the album. Cool stuff. I don't know. I'm sure the Opeth fans can tell me if this is a good Opeth album, but in my opinion, it is.
From what I can tell and what I've seen, I think they like it. I don't know if people are calling it like a career high or anything, but definitely people. I've seen it on a number of year-end lists, and people seem to like it.
Yeah.
My number 19 is Plunge by Sam Evian. I gave in our award show, if you haven't seen that, go check that video out. I gave Comeback of the Year to Ed Harcourt, but I could have given some consideration to this one as well. Sam Evian went all funky and groovy on 2021's Time to Melt, which is an amazingly well produced album, but I don't think the style really suited him that well. But here on Plunge, I think he's found a way to take like some of those ideas and like pull it into his normal kind of like power pop, indie pop sound that he's known for. And I think he's able to strengthen that sound, through some of these other elements because like I think it feels on this record like he's arriving at something that's very unique. You got a lot of guests on the record. Hannah Cohen's on here, Liam Kazar, Adrian Lenker. It makes an appearance. She co-produces one of the songs with him as well. Oddly, you can't really tell who's doing what because the only credits given on the Wikipedia page are for vocals. Everyone's credited with backing vocals. No one is credited for playing any instruments on the whole record. So I don't know what's up with that, but track 2, Jacket, has an especially Liam Kazar feel to it, so I have a feeling he has something to do with that one. Lenker, like I said, co-produced the track Rollin' In. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his, going back through all of his catalog. One little misstep in 2021, but I think he's back on solid footing now.
Well, I have heard of that one. I think I even listened to it. I don't know. It's in my top 100 somewhere. I don't know where. Not in the top 5, but it's a good album if I remember correctly. My number 19, this guy's been getting a ton of press. He's on a whole bunch of top 10 lists. I saw him win a couple. A little surprised about, but I think he's earned it. That's Mick Gee, 2 star in The Dream Police is his album. Very cool, minimalistic. It's like a cross between R&B, bedroom pop, like early Police kind of. it's really weird that the songs are hazy, they're a little obfuscated. It kind of sounds like Sting sometimes on vocals. But the main draw is his unique guitar playing style. He plays a jazz master, strung as a baritone. I believe he plays with a capo a lot on the third fret. So really unique sounding, really interesting, sparse, lots of chords. You know, definitely some Andy Summers, definitely some Prince in there, kind of all percolating around into this very interesting stew. Not all of the songs are songs. Some of them kind of meander and don't have much of a form to it. But when he actually brings everything together and puts, a pop forward type of sheen on a song, Are You Looking Up, Candy, Alessis, uh, he's got so much talent, and these songs really sing and uh, you know, totally unique. Just a guy that you really are going to keep an eye on and see where he goes because he unlimited potential. The next album could be, I mean, even better. And this is already a pretty good. I don't think it's his debut, but I guess it is his debut, not his actual debut. Uh, but his debut full length LP, whatever. So he's got unlimited potential. Can't wait to see what he does next.
That's another one that I thought would be higher. I thought that would be like top five.
Um, Too many songs that aren't really songs.
Number 18 for me is Driftless Girl by Grey Delisle. This is another one that I talked about in one of our best so far videos. Favorite pure country record of the year. It was near floating around the top of my list all year long. It was the first record that I gave a 4.5 to back in March or whatever. It was the first one to crack that barrier for the year. Just love her voice, just like a classic female country voice, kind of in line with like a Loretta or a Dolly or an Emmy Lou. And she's a voice actor too, so she does one of the voices in Fairly Odd Parents and a whole bunch of other cartoons. So she's got like just incredible control of her voice. You got a bunch of great songs here. They all just are really good at painting a picture. The production is great as well, and there's some killer musical performances from her band. The guitar work, in particular, on some of the songs is really strong. The guitar tone on Quick Draw is fantastic. Some great playing on the track Little Ol' While as well. Some great ensemble playing on a track like In the Living Room. You've got some Hawaiian pedal steel and some great piano playing, playing off of each other really well. It feels like everyone in one room listening to each other. The whole record feels very relaxed and really loose and supremely confident. Yeah, so another one. If you like country, yeah, definitely a must hear.
I think I heard that one too. It's pretty good. My number, where are we? Number 18. This one was much higher on my list, and perhaps maybe people are thinking it's going to be in my top five, but fell a little bit. I still like it, but it's not as good as I said it was. I was kind of fronting a little bit. Usher, Coming Home, still in my top 25 though. And I consider this his tour de force. I think this really covers his whole career, from kind of the teenage wonderkin R&B star back in the 90s all the way through Confessions and all the other weird albums that he did that nobody really is paying attention to. And some even forward-looking stuff. You got the club bangers, the big soppy ballads. He still sounds great. He's an artist who's, 30 years into his career, hasn't lost, one iota of power in his voice, still got that heavenly falsetto. Uh, there's so many just hokey and lame songs on this album, and I totally eat them up. He samples Billy Joel, Uptown Girl, on a track called A Town Girl, and it barely like it doesn't even work. Like the sampling of it, he takes it too far, and it just sounds kind of awkward. But I still love it. There's a song called Stone Cold Freak, which is just like so hackneyed, but so catchy. And there's so many songs like that that are just kind of lame and hokey, but I love them and they sound great and he sings them so well. And he stretches out a little bit. He does a song with HER called Risk It All, which is a little folky. The first track, Coming Home, featuring Burna Boy, has got that Afro pop flavor coming through. I think it's a really good example of it. I think he uses it really well. A track called Margella, produced by The Dream, which is interesting for him. Kind of dirty, kind of harkens back to Confessions Part 2 a little bit. And I mean, it's lame. It really is. But I think he's such a good vocalist, and these tracks are so catchy that it just doesn't matter. I think he still has it. And I don't like how male R&B singers and artists these days just get totally written off like they're like lame or something. And because I mean they are kind of lame, but they have a place, and I would like to see more of them on some of these, top 50, top 100 lists because they always get left out. Justice for Usher.
I forgot to say at the top that I thought there was a pretty good chance this year that we had none in common. So far, I do not have Usher. That's not what I'm getting at.
Oh, what?
I do think you like this next record that I'm about to talk about. Maybe an outside chance, but I've got at number 17, Outros Fios by Chico Bernardes. And I've become a bit of a Tim Bernardes super fan since discovering his band Uterno in 2019 and their album Atras Alem, which is just like one of my all-time favorites now, just an instant classic for me. Anyways, this is his brother, Chico, or Chico, who I was not even aware of until the day this came out, and I saw it in the new releases. This is his second record. First one of his came out in 2019 as well. They're Brazilian, so this is the only non-English entry in my top 25. I've been dabbling in Brazilian music for a couple years now, and I think it's the country with like the most alluring music to me outside of the U.S. I think something about Portuguese is just really musical, really pleasing to listen to. But I really love this record for the arrangements, really gorgeous and simple arrangements. Not usually very busy, not a lot going on in the songs. Things kept fairly simple. Machades, Minhas. You get like 2/3 of the song is just piano and voice, and then you get a little bit of brass coming in and a clarinet playing a little bit of a lead line, and that's like perfect. It's enough to build things and move it, but nothing ever really overwhelms the voice. The strings on Desfazar are perfect. They're sitting really far back in the mix, but they're so effective. And I would say these aren't particularly hooky tunes. It's not like a super catchy record, but I think they're each song is made so emotionally effective. Like he's squeezing as much emotion as possible out of every single one of the songs through the arranging, and I think it's really fantastic and memorable because of that.
Well, that was my number 28 of the year. So it was right there. But another near miss. My number 17, I'm gonna go with I think I heard this pretty late in the year. And sometimes you'll have that. The albums you hear last are the ones that kind of worm their way maybe higher than they would deserve. And at one point, this was out of my top 25, and then I listened to it again, and I was like, "What the hell was I thinking? This is top 25 material." It is Lucy Rose with "This Ain't the Way You Go Out." Very nice 70s sounding folk rock, jazz, Joni Mitchell kind of the combination, influence, pop music, folk, jazz. It kind of all comes together in a nice stew. You hear some Carole King, some Stevie Wonder even. And it's not like a total retro throwback though. There's some 90s Fiona Apple, a little anger in there as well. Really like the playing on it. Really thick R&B styled rhythm section. Just slamming bass all over this album. And I really like some of the synth sounds that pop up. Kind of remind me of like Stevie Wonder using a Tonto back in the 70s. Not not synth sounds I don't think I've heard in a while. Really skillfully played, some awesome piano. The drum and bass, like I said, is fantastic. The way they weave together is masterful, especially on the first track, Light as Grass, which just really comes together. One of my favorites of the year. And then the closer, The Racket, also one of my favorites of the year. Just really skillful, really nice dancing around piano with a really great bass line. Can't beat that. You really just can't. It's great.
Number 16 for me is one that was a big riser, picked up a lot of steam here at the end, and maybe if the year was a week or two longer, it could continue its march to the top 10. But landing at number 16, I've got the record Ceremony by the Joy Hotel, which is a debut album that feels like it should be at least their sixth album. It is so advanced for a debut record. They formed in 2019, so they had a decent gestation period, 5 years before putting out their first LP. But man, it's so fully realized. They're a seven-piece band out of Glasgow. You've got male and female vocals. M. Woods, the female part of that, just a powerhouse vocalist. The album is really big and expansive, and the songs shift and change directions unexpectedly. There's a lot of tempo changes, a lot of left turns, but it doesn't feel as crazy as that makes it sound. It doesn't feel super experimental. In fact, I think the way all the puzzle pieces fit together in such a logical way is what's so amazing about it. It's kind of like loosely conceptual, I guess. All the songs flow together seamlessly. It's like one big chunk of music, and the whole thing just kind of snowballs as it goes along. They said they recorded it sequentially, so by the end of the record, they're just like getting more and more confident, I think, in the studio, and yeah, I don't know. It's like progressively minded, even if it doesn't really sound like prog rock. Killer musical performances as well. The band rocks the shit out of tunes like First Joy, Rapid Eye Movement, and Small Mercy. Like I said, M is just a powerhouse vocalist. I think there's some incredible vocal performances on this record, and yeah, just a killer band. Excited for see what they do.
You don't think I heard that one either. Missing all these rock artists. Well, I'll get to them when we do the deep dive in 50 years from now. My number 16, you had a late riser. I had a late riser. This is such a late riser. I was talking smack on him in our last video. But for, again, I decided, you know, I needed to listen to it again because I don't think I was giving him a fair shot. And that person is Johnny Blue Skies with Passage du Désir. I don't know how you say it. AKA Sturgill Simpson. This is like I said, a super late riser. I kicked, spoiler alert, Vampire Weekend off of my list to make room for this. Yeah. Shocking. I know, because I was just talking about how much I like the Vampire Weekend in the last video. And things just flip-flopped around in this last week or so. But anyway, Sturgill Simpson, you know the guy. Metamodern Sounds Country Music, Sailor's Guide to the Ocean, or whatever the hell it's called. Apparently, he only wanted to keep the Sturgill Simpson moniker for 5 albums, and now he's Johnny Blue Skies, and I don't really understand why he's doing that, and frankly, I won't research it. But, people like Jason think he fell off, especially after the Hard Rock Detour of Sound and Fury, which I learned to appreciate. It's a different topic, though. Here he's kind of back in expansive cosmic country. And he's back to what he does best. All that hard rock stuff, that's all stripped away. You get elements of Willie Nelson and Waylon alongside elements of Graham Parsons and Gene Clark. And I I don't know. This third time I listened to this and I heard Jupiter's Ferry again, I was just struck by how good it sounded, how big it was, how ambitious it all was. And I got those Cosmic Country, the Gene Clark vibes from it. And I was like, all right, I gotta really just listen to this closely. And yeah, I'm glad I did. You just, you get the silly stuff, the Bakersfield sound, something like Scooter Blues, which is a lot lighter, and then right into Jupiter's Ferry, which is this, big cosmic sound. And I think the two fit really well, and I think he nails both sides of the country coin. So yeah, I take back everything bad I was saying about Johnny Blue Skies and Passage du Désir that I said in the last video because it's a very good album.
Number 15 for me is kind of a weird one, another late riser, but I've got The Warping by Walt Disco. It's kind of goth and glam at the same time, campy and really theatrical, very over the top. Vocals will obviously draw some Bowie comparisons. I think it's kind of obvious comparison to draw, so that's fair enough. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. They're pulling from so many places in every era, and it's really kind of a tapestry of a bunch of different things. A song like Come Undone merges disco and mid 80s pop. A song like Black Chocolate, on the other hand, has a programmed drum beat, a lot of strings just blasting in your face, and kind of like this wall of sound guitar, almost Nine Inch Nails-esque, and maybe a little bit slightly industrial on that one. And then they follow that up with perhaps the album's most gentle tune called Jocelyn. There's a track on there called The Captain, which is just like this huge anthemic song that feels like it was built for an arena. There's a lot going on. The vocals are weird and kind of sound like Bowie, and it's just strange and theatrical. And if that's what you like, you should check it out. It's one of the weirder records of the year, but I think it's done really well, and I think they are successful.
All right. To my number 15, I'm going with Tyler, the Creator. Chromacopia, and it's the production, stupid. It's, he is with Kanye West falling off as hard as he has in the past couple of years, and the whole is he a Nazi? Is he a Nazi? Blah 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 blah. You never know what Kanye's gonna do or say, and his music has suffered as well. So here's comes Tyler, the Creator, kind of out of his footprints. He revolutionized the game, but I do think Tyler, the Creator, has just assumed the mantle, best, most interesting producer in alternative, rap, hip hop, whatever genre you want to call it. Love his samples. He pulls from soul and jazz and hip hop, sometimes all on the same tracks, sometimes all at the same time. The album is woozy and seasick and kind of lurches from track to track, kind of blurring the lines between them sometimes. It's funny, it's angry, it's layered and layered and layered. There's so much going on that you really need multiple listenings to kind of hash it all out. But it sounds great. The songs are cool. Saint Chroma, Like Him, Judge Judy, Noid. Just really good songs. It's loud and brash and in your face, but it's also rich and musical and funny and just kind of all the things that make alternative hip hop good. Tyler kind of takes them all and mashes them all together. And I think I get Tyler, the Creator now. I think I'm on his level. I think I can start listening to his old stuff and appreciating it.
Number 14 for me is one that I don't know if people will see coming from me. I think when I first talked about it on the Discord, I gave it 4 stars. I think it was like, it's pretty cool, but maybe it pointed out some flaws. I felt like at first listen that it was a little like one note, a little too much, a little too like too long and too much of the same thing throughout the runtime. But it's just a lot to take in at once, and multiple listens has revealed quite a bit more. So I'm going with The New Sound by Jordy Greep at number 14. I think it's really singular, super unique vision. Nothing else really like it. Reminds me a little bit of like Alex Cameron, what he does in these like character studies of these total creeps. And yeah, but I don't know like who else is doing like this type of music with this insane prodigious playing outside of extreme music genres. Like no, I don't think there's anyone else in like indie rock or this realm with this type of playing. This is just like insane chops through the whole thing. Lots of really odd times, jazz elements, bossa nova elements. I think it's really wild, and I think it's exciting to have this kind of playing in this genre again. Uh, Thinking back, I mean, I can't even think of anyone ever. I mean, this is like Steely Dan level playing mixed with like I don't know prog and who knows what else. It's yeah, I don't know. It's a crazy record.
Kind of reminds me of like a scumbag ABC, like scumbag lexicon of love, the way it all comes together. I have trouble with that album because I don't like the character that inhabits it, and I don't know, it's cool, but something about it holding me back from really loving it. Okay, back to my list. We're if I haven't said, this is all 4-star material. We're not going to get to the 4.5s for a little while still, but these are all, mid to high 4-star albums. And when we're 14 in a year of great pop albums, this might be the runner-up behind an album to be named later. And that is Remy Wolf's Big Ideas. It's got more substance than Sabrina Carpenter. It's more fun than Taylor Swift. She's got a great style. She's, very personal, fearless, uninhibited with her songwriting, kind of sleazy and cheeky, very honest, but it's wrapped up in a really great pop confection package. She writes and produces, at least, co-produces all of her songs, which is cool. The band sounds fantastic. I think most people probably heard the song Toro at this point. It sounds unbelievable. I'm really impressed with how good the band sounds behind her for an album this catchy and this pop forward. I think that's really impressive. And there's some other aspects that's not like pure confectionery pop. A song like Wave brings in kind of like an alternative sound. Soup as well, kind of a little bit different than what you might expect from a pop star, but she's got all the trappings of a pop star. She's got a joie. Why can I never remember how to say this? Um,
Joie de vivre.
yeah, Well, she's got a joie de vivre that's quite infectious, and yeah, just a really good um, full-figured pop album from her.
All right, number 13 for me, going back to back with my two proggiest picks. I've got To Shoot Another Day by Rosalie Cunningham, but it's still a pretty different record from Jordy Griep, where the Griep is kind of like jazzy, odd times, Steely Dan weirdness. This one leans more into 70s hard rock. It's got a little bit of like James Bond noir spy flick thing running throughout as well. I think I can hear some like intentional nods to like Band on the Run and Live and Let Die era McCartney. I like Rosalie's voice a lot. It reminds me a lot of like Annie Clark if she was fronting a 70s hard rock band. There's great melodies, but that's not the only place where the hooks are. I think the guitars are doing a lot of heavy lifting too, with playing some great leads, some great jamming on the record too. Between this and the Jordy Griep record and the Joy Hotel albums, it feels like artists are starting to like get good again at stretching out and exploring again without losing the songs in the process. Felt for a while like you were either like a jammy, excessively noodly artist, or you just stuck to the songs. And there's a bunch of records this year, which is a nice development where like they're song focused, but there's a lot of really good playing. So that's my favorite thing about 2024, and yeah, there's a lot of that on this record.
Okay, my number 13. I'm gonna go with a name people probably know, but I don't know if they know about this album. I got Untamed the Tiger by Mary Timony. Another album, and this seems to be a theme this year, leans into the cranky alternative 90s scene. A lot of, loud guitars, a lot of big bass, loud drums this year. And nothing wrong with that. This one, she's a great guitarist. She was on Rolling Stone's Greatest Guitarist of All Time, which debatable. But she's got some very cool guitar work here. A lot of great bass as well. Opener No Thirds has incredible bass playing. Really caught my ear. There's some cool synths on here too. Very interesting sounding. It comes from a land of alternative 90s, but it adds on these kind of unexpected un-90s things, which is cool. It's mellow and unhurried at times, unfussy, but also a little grungy. And the guitar leads, they're not showy, they're not flashy, but they're really good. They have like an experienced lived-in spirit. She's a little worn out, but she's still rocking. And there's tons of personality that shines through, even though, the songs are pretty straightforward. There's nothing like outlandish, out of the box. There's no prog or, weird long instrumental passage. It's just kind of like straightforward alternative rock, but very much a unique sound to it. And Fairport Convention's Dave Maddox drums on the album, which is cool as well. I don't know why they know each other, but love to see Fairport Convention connections.
All right, number 12 for me is someone else who was on the channel. I've got New Age Rage by Eric Slick, drummer for Dr. Dog. This is his third solo record. Yeah, one of the more fun records of the year, kind of a dance party, just an explosion of ideas that I think in lesser hands could have been a bit of a mess. There's a whole lot going on, but he's able to pull it together. Some really slick grooves, slinky bass lines, killer synth sounds all over the place, and I think some really good songs at the heart of it all. He also put out an acoustic EP this year, kind of like acoustic remakes of some of the tracks from this record, which I think highlight that the songs can hold up on their own outside of these elaborate arrangements. You got Rat Boy 2, one of my favorite songs of the year. Stay tuned for that list later on. That song just has the funkiest groove, and the guitars are so great. It's just a wild record. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of influences from Bowie to Talking Heads, Devo, Daft Punk, Philly Soul, Todd Rundgren, just all kind of thrown into a big stew. And yeah, it's a really catchy, fun, dancey, high energy, fun record. I mean, if you look at the record cover, it's like this. It's hard to make out what is even going on the cover, and the music reflects that inside as well.
All right. That one, good album. Didn't make my list. It's on my top 100, though. My number 12. Probably people think this will be higher. And I think Jason in particular thinks it'll be higher, but it's not. It's only 12. Still good, though. Blood Incantation. Absolute Elsewhere. Coming in at number 12. This is the death metal album for people who don't necessarily like death metal. It's all over everyone's top 25 lists, more so than I can remember a death metal album being. And yeah, you get some of the death metal roaring, screaming vocals here, but definitely not enough to make the album unlistenable, which is good because the playing is really the star of the show here. It rockets between 70s prog and more modern variations of progressive metal. The vocals are, they're powerful and ugly and raw, but they do a really good job of supporting the music instead of taking over, the whole production. It's not just like constant grating, like just getting beaten down by screaming vocals. The instruments are the star, the progressive, Pink Floydy synth solos, great guitar playing. There's real moments of levity between the ferocity and the double kick drums and the more metal aspects. It gets metally and then it lets you breathe. It stretches off into space. And it's a really good balance of those two worlds. And so much so that, yeah, even normies are putting it on their top 25 end of the year, top 50, top 100 lists.
All right, number 11, just missing the top 10. I have a real Jason Core artist here. Yesterday, Don't Fail Me Now by Slow Runner. They started the year out re-recording their debut record, No Disassemble, and they did a fantastic job at it. It is maybe the only re-recording type record that I've ever heard that actually tops the actual thing they were replicating. But then later in the year, I think this came out in October, they come out with this, all original new songs, and it's so good. I've been a huge fan of Michael Flynn's writing for a long time, and I think this is a really great collection of new songs. From the opener, Weep My Little Lullaby, which is really aching and has just like the little bit of hope in it. It's a really powerful, kind of stirring song. It's unusual as an album opener. It feels almost like an album closer. It's so kind of dramatic. Then on the next track, Born Running, you get these big 80s toms that are just really epic sounding, and the song kind of swells with emotion. He really knows how to play on your heartstrings, Michael Flynn, with his writing. Skull of Mary Magdalene, has these classic Michael Flynn lyrics, some of my favorite on the record. The record sounds really great as well. It's well engineered, well mixed, and I don't know. To me, he's one of the best songwriters of his era. Never quite got his due, but to see him still putting stuff out there that's this good is just it's great to see, and it's inspiring, and yeah, it's as strong as anything he's ever done. I think just a really good record.
Right, my number 11, I'm going with Luna Lee. When a Thought Grows Wings. She was a former pandemic darling who, I don't know, she did some YouTube videos and they blew up and showed off all her instrumental skills and kind of a wonderkind. Came out with an album, Duality, which kind of uneven, but got her a lot of notoriety. She got like a Pitchfork review out of it and everything else. And this new album seems to have flown under the radar, which is a shame because it's very good. She comes off halfway between airy Ariana Grande like pop and Wise Blood like Baroque indie, laid back sound, not sleepy, but there's a sort of steadiness to her music. Really well played and arranged. Songs feature flute and harp, and there's some fuzz guitar on I Would Let You. Great bass playing. She plays a bunch of instruments. I'm not sure exactly how many of the instruments she plays on this, if she plays all of them or not, but everything sounds great. And just a really well put together, impressive album. I got to shout out one of our commenters, Curly Wynn, for the inspiration to listen to this one. I believe it was on his top 15 list. So decided to check it out and very much taken by how good it sounds. Right in the crux of Joe Core type female Baroque songwriting style.
Yeah, that is one I never even heard of. So, number 10, top 10 time, going with Where We've Been, Where We Go From Here by Freako, my favorite debut album of the year. Chicago indie rock band. Yeah, kind of a total surprise to me. Never heard of them before this, never caught wind of any of the buzz or the hype around them. But it came out in February when there was still not a ton of stuff that I was interested in hearing. So I decided to check it out. And I thought, why not? Throw it on. And initially, I wouldn't say it blew my mind, but it did have like this pull to it. It's one of those records that, even though it didn't like blow me away at first, it did make me want to keep re-listening to it. And I listen to a lot of music, and I don't re-listen to a lot of stuff. So if a record is pulling me back to it, I know something's up. So Yeah, it's just like I don't know. It's an indie record with like this really honest sincerity to it. There's a vulnerability to it, and kind of like an emotional core to it, which is I think why I wanted to keep listening to it. Not something you always get with an indie rock record. I hear a lot of like Connor Oberst in Nico Capitan's voice, kind of shaky, quivery vocals at times. The band also cite Me Without You, Mitski, and the Beach Boys as primary influences on the album. They've got some pretty memorable songs on here. They're not the poppiest of bands by any means, but I think the songs really stick. And there's like this really measured ferocity to the record in the playing. I think they're really good at like building up and getting loud and building this tension just enough, and then they dial the dynamics back. It never really like fully explodes or releases. It's kind of almost feels like bottling emotions and like pushing it back down, and it creates this kind of tension and uneasiness throughout the record, which is really cool. Yeah, it's a good one. Check it out.
That one's on my top 50, I think. Top 100 for sure. Definitely hear the Bright Eyes, Connor Oberst in there. Uh, Part of your transformation into an emo kid. My number 10, I'm not going to give him a chance to respond to that. My number 10, going back to the metal well for Judas Priest, Invincible Shield. And I said this about Firepower when it came out in 2018. This is the best since Painkiller. Well, now this is the best since Painkiller. And Firepower is still a good record, but this is better. This is Iron Maiden in all their fury, their glorious, glorious fury. Totally kick ass 50 years after their debut. The fire and the fury is still there. You know, they don't chug and they don't kind of lurch around. Like it's just balls to the wall. It's great. Um, the fact that they were able to just hold up like this, replace um, KK Downing as well as they have with Richie Faulkner, steps right in. You can't tell the difference. It's awesome. Rob Halford still can wail, man. He's just killing it as a septuagenarian, and love the drums, the double kicks. Just it's fantastic stuff. It's amazing that they can still stay this good this late into their career, and that is just incredibly hard to do. 50 years after their debut, they still rock this hard. Crazy. Judas Priest, baby.
Number nine for me is Manning Fireworks by MJ Lenderman, a member of the band that I gave Album of the Year to last year, Wednesday. He's got several solo records out. I first became aware of him, uh, well, I guess from Wednesday actually, but then I heard 2022's Boat Songs and didn't realize the connection for quite a while. But I think his writing just keeps getting stronger. It's interesting to see an artist in this genre getting such massive critical acclaim, Fantano notwithstanding. And I think it's because he has such a singular voice, and not his actual voice, but like his perspective and his way of writing and all the weird cultural references that he throws in, and it feels very fresh and very new. Even though he's using this kind of like tried and true Americana country rock to present the songs. So you get this kind of like juxtaposition of like familiar sound and this kind of newer way of writing. But overthinking it less, I think it's just a good rock album, good music, good guitar playing, some great Neil Young inspired guitar work, and a really forceful rhythm section reminiscent of like the Drive By Truckers. Yeah, I just think, yeah, good tunes, kind of a good like summer evening type of record is how it feels to me. I think the lyrics are really cool and interesting, and kind of, I don't know, that seemed to be Fantano's big gripe, but I don't get it. I'm with everyone else that loves it.
Not me.
You don't
I don't
love it?
love it. Too slacker rock for me. It's part of this new like Neil Young if he was a slacker rocker sort of subgenre that's cropped up in the last couple of years that frankly I have no time for. I get I don't like slacker rock, hate it, and I don't like he's too lackadaisical. I don't know. He's a slacker. I don't care. My number 9 is an album. You have to have this on your list. If you don't have this on your list, I'm gonna be upset. and it is A Dream Is All We Know by the Lemon Twigs. If this misses your top 25, then something's gone horribly wrong in Taste Like Music land. Because this is just, you know, power pop perfection. It is a band that has, they're so good. Like we know, we saw them together. They're one of the best bands out there. Their playing is immaculate. Their ability to reproduce sounds is incredible. And they've decided to just, head back to the 60s and take the British invasion and twist it into their own sound. It's a little maybe smoother and more mimicry than you'd expect from a band like the Lemon Twigs, which had this kind of weird streak to them. They kind of push that to the side and are just like, we are going to make the most catchy, most beautiful sounding pastiches of the Beach Boys and the Beatles and the Byrds and the Zombies. And just the way they pull it off, it works. Like even if you don't like that type of music, like you have to be impressed by how well they pull it off and how good they sound when they do it. Like these are so close to the real thing that it's almost indistinguishable at times. My Golden Years, A Dream Is All I Know, How Can I Love Her More? It's like, I don't know, perfection. And yeah, it's a great album. It's very close to 4.5 stars for me. We're getting close to the 4.5 star mark. I think it's just missing that like twist, that like little oddball humor or something. Just a little bit of that, I think would have gone a long way. But it's still like you put it on and you just fall in love with the sounds of the 60s all over again. So yeah, it's a great record.
Yes, it is. We got one in common. That is my number eight. Talk about it right now, right after you. How much do I like the Lemon Twigs? I think this is their worst record, and it's my eighth favorite record of the year. It's only my least favorite because there's not really any surprises. I knew what this record was going to be, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. But the songwriting is still great. The singing and the musicianship are off the charts. The production is really cool, all analog. If you like 60s pop, especially like 66, 67, there is no one that does that sound better. And outside of a few artists like, the Beatles and the big monolithic type bands, I think the Lemon Twigs albums are actually even better and more consistent than most of the other influences that they have. Like a lot of the other like B tier British invasion bands didn't make records that are this good. So yeah, they're just great. They're knocking it out of the park every time. I have the same complaint as you. I wish there was a little bit more of their own kind of weirdness shining through. They kind of did away with some of like the 70s glam things that shone through in the early records. And some of like Rado's production stuff on Do Hollywood. Some of that would be nice. But yeah, it's hard to complain. It's just so damn enjoyable.
All right, my favorite metal album of the year is not the most popular picks. It's not Judas Priest. It's not Blood Incantation. I'm going with Slift and the album Ilion or I Lion or whatever. I don't know. They're French. How the hell do I know? 80 minutes of just blasting through space. This is the only metal band that gave me goosebumps this year. It's psychedelic progressive metal, and it starts at 11 and just never drops. It's just from the moment it's like going into an IMAX theater or something, and the THX the comes on, and it's just like there you are. You're just getting pummeled, assaulted with riffs. It's not death metal, but they kind of got that like horse Norseman Viking vocals, not melodic, just powerful. The bass playing and the drums are just, sledgehammers to the face. Great guitar work, kind of Sabbathy riffs just that travel and travel and travel. It's just a really cool album. Heard it early in the year, and it stuck with me. It came out January 19th, so long ass time ago. But it stuck with me all this time, and it gets my coveted Metal Album of the Year award.
All right. Number seven for me, probably the last chance of us doubling up on something. And I don't know. I didn't really catch what your opinion was of it when it came out not very long ago. My number seven is Mahashmashana by Father John Misty. His last album, Chloe, in the last 21st century or whatever the hell it was called, was good. I think I had it at 4 stars, but even though it was good, it also felt like, okay, the classic Father John Misty era is over, and now we're in like the slow decline phase. And this record comes along and I think does away with that notion. I think he's back with a vengeance on this one, sharp as ever. Opens with the 9.5 minute title track, which feels like almost like a lost track from All Things Must Pass. The chord progression and everything is so George Harrison, and the strings and the sax and just like this wall of sound coming at you. Just a really great track. Then you get the total shift in feel into She Cleans Up, which is like this grimy, almost like Tom Waitian blues rock thing, which is somewhat a new palette for him, but I think he feels pretty at home in that track and does it well. Then I think two of the album's best tracks come after those. Josh Tillman and The Accidental Dose and Mental Health, I think, are both great. The string arrangement on Accidental Dose really reminds me of the strings on Beck's Sea Change album. Yeah, the album has everything you want. Great lyricism, incredible arrangements, really strong melodies. Yeah, it's right up there. It's not my favorite Father John Misty record, but it's like, it's in the mix of the top 3 or 4, I think, now. So just, yeah, couldn't be happier that he came back so strong.
Funny you should have that at number seven because it's also my number seven. So, fears of no real albums. I don't even count the Lemon Twigs because that was a slam dunk. But those fears have been assuaged, gone. Mahashmashana, my number seven as well. I pretty much had the same feeling about Chloe. I thought it was good, and there's a couple tracks that were great, like Q4, but it wasn't classic Father John. It wasn't, that idiosyncratic, almost self-pitying to the point of parody style that he pulls off so well. The whole like orchestral focus. I don't know, it kind of took the focus off him a little too much. But I agree, Mahashmashana is a welcome return to form. I don't think, my two favorites from him are Honey Bear and God's Favorite Customer, where the focus and the songwriting are all about him. And without that, I don't think it's quite as powerful as those two, but it kept growing on me and growing on and growing on me like Pure Comedy did, which is I think it's a similar album to that. Really starts to get under your skin. The song lengths stretching to 5, 6, 8, 9 minutes. For the title track, the first track, which just throws you headlong in the album, really ratchets things up quickly. I love the arrangement, production there, all the strings and the horns, and it's just an awesome way to start an album. And again, Father John Misty's lyrics are great, even if they're not quite as I don't know. They're very thoughtful, but they don't have that edge to them when he, was singing about himself on Honey Bear and God's Favorite Customer as much. But they're still great, still sarcastic, still witty. The title track, Josh Tillman and the Accidental Dose and Mental Health, I think are the clear-cut top tracks, but pretty much everything on here is just great classic Father John stuff.
All right, and that does it for, I think, any chance of us having duplicates. My number six is Watch Me Drive Them Dogs Wild by Merce Lemon. Pittsburgh in the house with this one, but no home field advantage. I think this album deserves the placement that I'm giving it. The songs are great, really earthy and feel very connected to nature. Doesn't sound like a Pittsburgh record really to me. It sounds like the Carolinas, which I do think is where they recorded it. Her band on this record is incredible, fantastic players, dynamic performances that highlight the vocals, great tones, some amazing guitar sounds. Everything sounds fantastic. The guitar solo on Crow rips. One of the best solos of the year. Pretty killer solo on Slipknot as well. Same producer as the MJ Lenderman record, so if you like that sound, check this one out. Although I think this one is even a little more rich, a little richer, and a little more lush. I think there's a little bit more depth to the sound, a little more full. So yeah, the vocals aren't as slacker, so maybe, but it does have that Neil Young thing going on. So
As many do. I missed that album. I've kept meaning to listen to it. Should have shown more love for Pittsburgh uh, compatriots there. I'll get to it someday. My number six, you definitely don't have this on your list. Would be the most surprising thing of all time. I'm going with Lucky Day, Algorithm. This album fills the giant gaping Miguel-sized hole in my alternative R&B genre listening experience since it's been 7 friggin' years since Miguel put out an album. But this is pretty close to a Miguel, and I listened to this one more and more as year went on because, like I mentioned in the Usher review, hot male-fronted R&B bands with real instrumentation is just becoming a rarity in modern music. And not that, that's a super unique sound. It's been done many times before. Uh, but in 2024, something like this really stands out. Especially, he's pretty popular. He's getting, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million streams. So the fact that people are still interested in this sound, I think is very good. And this is just strong R&B verse in both past and current sounds. The production's great, the instrumentation is great, monster bass lines, sounds modern, but you know, it's real people playing real instruments. And that seems to be more of a rarity in this type of music. It doesn't sound digital, it doesn't sound fake, it sounds real and alive and powerful. And the songs are super catchy, super melodic. He's got a great voice. But really it's that like really tight banging rhythm section and the analog sounding synths and everything that really just put this into my top six.
all right, one that you definitely don't have at my number five. I've got "It's Sorted" by Cheek Face. I just think this record's a blast. They've drawn a lot of comparisons to like They Might Be Giants and Cake, which those comparisons aren't totally unfounded, especially lyrically and vocally. I mean, I hear what people are hearing when they say that, but like I think comparing them to those bands misses like a huge part of their sound, or like if you're trying to describe them to someone and that's what you say, I think the people that go listen to them are going to be surprised at what they actually sound like. I don't know. I think they have like way more muscle behind their sound, and for being a three-piece band, just I think they're really tight and really good players. They play well together. The songs are catchy as hell. Yeah, like if the lyrics weren't funny and didn't have that humorous edge to them, I think they would still be really good, catchy songs. To me, they're almost like closer to like TPOH or something, where they have like this brattiness to them, almost kind of like a little bit of a punky edge to the playing. Maybe Presidents of the United States of America would be another comparison. But yeah, just I just have a blast listening to it. Popular too. I'm continuing to do my thing. Two of the most infectious songs of the year for me. Played them a lot. And then you have a song like there were changes in the hardcore scene, and that lyrically reminds me of like Craig Finn of the Hold Steady, something he would write, talking about a scene and characters and people. And I don't know. It's a fun record. Just listen to it to find out what it sounds like, I guess.
At your own risk. That's in my bottom 10 for the year, but I don't like that kind of fun music. I don't know. There's something about it. Something about it. They're also a little too full of themselves on Twitter, which I do not appreciate. My number five, I'm going with the debut from the last dinner party. Got Prelude to Ecstasy. It's big Baroque pop with some swears in it to keep it spicy. They open with a purely orchestral flourish in the title track, Prelude to Ecstasy. And it sounds like something you'd hear over the credits of like a big period piece, Fancy Ball, Bridgerton kind of thing. And that's exactly the vibe of this album. It's grandiose, it's over the top, it's big budget pop music, limitless ambition, arty. It wants to be big and important, and I think they pull it off. Love Abigail Morris's vocals. Just very much in control, very charismatic. Not the most guitar forward type of music, but I think it's played really well. Guitar, the bass, the keyboardist Aurora Nijefchi? I don't know how to say it. Really great, touches of organ and synths and piano in there, keeps things alive. And yeah, the band rocks hard enough. It's got a little bit of that edge to it, in spite of all the lush arrangements and high class attitude, to make it more than just, another Baroque pop album. It's got a punk, a little Riot Girl edge to it, on tracks like Feminine Urge and Sinner and Nothing Matters that elevate it to top five in 2024.
All right, we are through my 4.5s. So I got 4 5 stars this year.
Hmm.
My number 4 is the record that was at my top spot for like since it came out most of the year until I got around to the re-listening. And was at that point like the only 5 I had for the year until I bumped some stuff up. But I've got Name Your Sorrow by Pillow Queens. Just I think a killer rock record, great guitar parts, great guitar tones. I love Pamela Conley's vocals, just one of the coolest lead singing voices I've heard in rock, at least like this type of rock, in a long time. Everything on this record is memorable. All the songs are really strong. There's super hooky guitar parts. Colin Pastor produced the record. His production's really great. It just sounds massive. Every element fits together really well. There's like this push and pull in the rhythm section, great dynamics. He's worked with Lucy Dacus and Boy Genius and Katie Pruitt and Suki Waterhouse and a bunch of other women. Kind of got a little, what's his name? Jack.
Jack.
Yeah, whatever Jack is doing, that's what he's doing, working with all women. He's got a playlist of like 30 tracks on Apple Music, and there's not a single dude on there. But whatever, doesn't matter. He's making some great music. Like a Lesson, blew up the world. Friend of mine, maybe the best 3 song run of the year, just killer after killer. Yeah, if you just like big rock records with cool, interesting voices and great guitar tones, check it out.
Well, if you like all the things you just said, I also recommend my number 4, and we are up to 4.5 stars. Last dinner party, 4.5 stars. I raised it up a half star. So that was the beginning of my 4.5 star albums. There are no 5 star albums, but couple 4.5 stars here. And the album I was referring to with big guitars and all that jazz, The Perils of Being Trapped Inside a Head by Nolan Potter. The spirit of 60s and 70s rock, very much alive and well in his hands. It is a very guitar focused album, but it's also weird. This has some of the weirdness that I'd like to have seen from the Lemon Twigs. There's a bunch of like non sequitur guitar lines that spiral off into nowhere. Some like laser beam synth hits and other odd sound effects to fill things out. Mole That Grows on Harvey sounds like ELO meets Frank Zappa. There's parts that remind me of like Eric Clapton. Kevin Help Us sounds like the Beatles. There's some like Brian Wilson stuff in there. There's a flute, makes it me think of like Procol Harum. Trapped Inside a Head is basically like a Black Sabbath, like Blue Oyster Cult riff that really takes me back to the 70s. There's some like ELO parts, there's some like Asia parts. Just really weird, but it's so good, and the guitar and the riffs are just amazing. The best guitar album I think of the year, pretty much runs away with it. I mean, Mick G would be the only other one where, it's like, okay, this is a new type of guitar and it's cool, but if you want just like guitar riffs rocking out like it's the 1970s, Nolan Potter is the way to go.
Yeah, that's a cool record. I liked it. I think we both talked about it in one of the quarterly videos. Didn't quite make my list, but yeah, that's a good one. Number three for me, by far the biggest grower from me. First time I listened to it, this was a 3.5. Now it's 5 stars and my third favorite of the year. Uh, yeah, I kind of knew when I listened to it the first time that I was underrating it, and kind of made a mental note to come back and check it out again. Good thing I did because I love it. It is Here in the Pitch by Jessica Pratt. Just really blowing my mind the last week or two. It feels like a record that was beamed in from another era, or like maybe a record that exists entirely outside of time. The melodies certainly have like this timeless quality to it, but man, when you consider how minimal this production is, then you really have to like step back and go, wait, how is she even doing this? Like, there's hardly anything going on except her voice and maybe like a guitar or a piano or something, and it just feels so otherworldly. Every choice is impactful. There's so much space that like when a string swell happens, or a snare drum comes in, or like a toy piano or whatever little element she introduces, when it comes in, it's so meaningful. Listen to the track World on a String and notice how sparse the snare is. I think there's maybe two little snare rolls in the whole song, and just squeezing like every ounce out of every choice and like getting maximum impact out of everything and not overdoing anything. She's got such a cool voice too. I think it's really captivating, and the way she uses it and the way it's produced and like just drenched in reverb here, it becomes like this other thing. Really beautiful record. Can't recommend it enough. 5 stars.
Wow. Wow, that is surprising.
Did you listen to that one?
Yeah, 3.5, baby. Classic 3.5. It's in my top 100, I believe. Down at 74-ish, 75-ish, down there. Right on the cusp of 4 stars, though. But I don't know. I only gave it one listen, so perhaps I need another. Here's number three. This might be the most surprising thing on the whole dang countdown, but it shouldn't be. Well, maybe it should. I don't know. This one in the last couple days went from like 23 to 3, and it's gone from 4 stars to 4.5 stars. And it kind of upends everything we just talked about in the Cure deep dive. I have Songs of a Lost World all the way at number three, 4.5 stars, which technically would make it my second favorite Cure album. I don't know if I can back that up, but for right now, it just keeps growing and growing and growing on me. And even the things, I quibbled with the extended intros in the Cure deep dive. This has the most extended intros of any Cure album ever. It's, 5 minutes until you get a word out of Robert Smith on the closer end song. But there's something, I don't know, striking about this music. And maybe the story of The Cure and the fact that this is kind of a comeback album and the fact that they're still doing it after all these years has colored my feelings on it. But I just find this to be maybe the most emotional music that the band and Smith have ever done. I love the arrangements. They're huge, massive, impeccably arranged. And even when you have the extended intros, I think their music holds up so well. I don't even mind it this time. I don't notice it. It's dense, but it's never overwhelming. I think the instruments sound amazing. They don't sound digital. They sound real. The synth sounds aren't some, 80s retro rehash. I think they sound very modern. There's plenty of acoustic piano. Reeve Gabrels steps in on guitar, and I think he adds some nice power to the proceedings. I love the drums, just absolutely seismic throughout the album. And there's zero signs of age on Robert Smith's voice. Like, I couldn't believe how good he sounded when the album came out. He just has not lost anything. It's still got that gothic grace to it. It's still beautiful. I love the opener Alone. I think the balance of synths and that ferocious drumming is handled perfectly. I think And Nothing Is Forever is the prettiest song they've written in 2 decades. Love the big crunchy guitar that comes in. That's like never ending synth riff. Reminds me a little bit of, believe it or not, Van Halen, especially on like the 80s stuff like Dreams. Like it's very, very Eddie Van Halen sounding, which is a big, big compliment because I think Eddie Van Halen's a fantastic synth player. Um, and then you have the closer end song, just an unceasing tempest, beautiful noise, just awesome. I don't know. It just kept growing on me and growing on me and growing on me until I had no choice but to put it at number 3 and 4.5 stars.
That is surprising.
Yeah. I don't even like The Cure that much.
What was Depeche Mode your number two last year?
Yeah. It
That's
was the
so
same
weird.
damn situation. I even said it wasn't the same situation as last year with Depeche Mode, and now it has become the same situation.
Well, I don't know if our viewers realize this or not, but I am required by law to have either a Big Thief or a Big Thief related solo project in my top two every year. I had Buck Meek number two last year, Big Thief number one in 2022, Buck Meek number two in 2021, Adrian Lenker, Bright Future number two this year. They're just too good. They've mastered songwriting, but not in a formulaic or like a mechanical way, but like in a mystical, true, and emotive way. It always feels like she's really exposing some like vulnerable part of herself, which is the hardest thing to do in songwriting. This batch of songs, no different. Recorded with an entirely analog process, never touched by a computer from start to finish. They even didn't listen to the playback when making the record. They just got in the room and played and didn't worry about anything except just capturing what they were doing. Really pure kind of way of making a record. Not that you have to make a record like that, but I think when so much music that you hear is the opposite, you can like really pick up on something when it's made that way now. Even if you can't like distinguish the sound of the tape, like even if you can't tell when something's recorded on tape versus digital, I think just the fact that they're live performances and they're not on the grid and they're not being pitch corrected, I think all those things are things that cumulatively add up, and they're things that you feel even if you don't know it intellectually. And just once again, my God, the songs are so good. Probably, I think at this point, with the level of consistency that she's had, I think you almost have to call her the best songwriter of the 21st century now. I think at this point, she's earned that. I don't think there's really anyone even close.
Well, it's nice to hear you say that about someone. I'll withhold my comments because I have my own number 2 to talk about. If she's your number 2, I wonder what your number 1 could be. My number 2 is an artist I had not heard of before this year, and that artist is Magdalena Bay, and the album is Imaginal Disc. How very RYM of me. But I can't deny this one. It is squarely in the Joe Core corner. Sounds like a cross between Carly Rae Jepsen and Tame Impala, basically. Uh, Two of my faves, so right up my alley. Maximalist art pop. It's dreamy and swirly and psychedelic a little bit and dark and electronic. And it just feels like a very 2024 type of music. It has some retro sounds to it, some 80s, but I think for the most part it's very much like this could only be made in 2024. And I don't know, it just as soon as I heard it, it's stuck with me throughout the years in our, I think, halfway point video. I said I liked it a lot, and it just always kind of was above everything else. There's nothing really close to uh, supplanting it. I love the playing, hyperactive drumming, great rambunctious bass work, very spacey synths. It's not disco, it's not R&B, but you can groove to it while taking in the artiness of it as well. And it's just an album and a band that, I don't know, speaks to all the things that I like in modern music. And yeah, it was a no-brainer. It never really was anything other than my second favorite album of the year. So there it is. Magdalena Bay, you're welcome. Rate Your Music, a little peace offering to you.
Well, I know what your number one is. I think that's obvious.
Yeah, it should be. Be real obvious.
Mine, yeah, maybe not so obvious, but another one that grew. I liked it a lot the first time I heard it. It wasn't a 3.5, but this past week or so listening to it is just no question that it's my favorite of the year. And it is I Want to Run Barefoot Through Your Hair by Christopher Owens. Big fan of Girls and also his earlier solo albums in the 2010s. I was pretty excited for this. And now, having spent, a couple months with it, I feel pretty comfortable saying that this is his greatest achievement of his career. I think it outshines even the Girls records. And if you don't know the story of Christopher Owens, it's a crazy one. And he went through a lot to get to this record. First of all, he escaped a cult. He was raised inside the cult. I forget what it's called. City of God, I think. When he was 16, I think he escaped. So that alone, shapes a lot of his life and the music that he made in Girls and in his solo career. But then what he went through in the last 5 or 6 years or whatever has just been like an unbelievable shitstorm of life. He was in a motorbike accident. He got hit on his motorbike, and he was afraid to go to the hospital because he didn't have insurance. So he couldn't walk for a month. His fiance ended their relationship. He got fired from his coffee shop job because he couldn't work anymore. He started living nomadically. He got a camper, attached it to his car, and was just driving around. And then the pandemic started. And then, so there was, at some point, I don't know the exact order of events, but they were planning another Girls record. And he was trying to write some songs for what would be the next Girls record. And those sessions didn't go well. J.R. White, the other guy from the band Girls, was falling asleep in the sessions and had a bad drug problem. And so JR went home to his parents to get some help, but he eventually died in October of 2020. So that was another blow. And then someone stole his camper with his cats and guitar in it. So he had nothing. He was totally homeless. And if you can imagine all of that happening to you and just all of that pain and struggle just to get back on your feet. And then it's all in this record. You can hear all of that in this record. And that's what this record is. But it's amazing that this record isn't just a total bummer of a record. I think it's actually a pretty celebratory record. There's a lot of hope and optimism in it. On top of that, I think the playing is phenomenal. The band he assembled for this is so good. You've got Derek Barber on guitar, a guitarist that I was not familiar with before this record, who is just a total revelation. His playing is just incredible. You said that Nolan Potter was your favorite guitar record of the year. This is my favorite guitar record of the year. I think Derek Barber's playing and the way he kind of dances around Christopher Owens' rhythm guitar and his vocals is masterful, super tasteful, incredible guitar tone. Just love the guitar on this record. Everyone else in the band killing it too. There's a bass run in the song I Think About Heaven that just leaves my jaw on the floor every time I hear it. It's incredible. The whole album I think is astounding. It's a record that I get a lump in my throat listening to. I think it's for me easy album of the year. Just a masterpiece.
Well, that's much better spoken than I'm going to speak about my number one because it feels cliche to even pick it, but it's the obvious choice. It's the only choice. It's Brat by Charlie XCX. And this was the year the critics finally got it right. Everybody picked this as their number one, and everybody in the Discord is complaining, "Oh, everyone picked it. How can everyone pick the same record?" It's just so obviously the one. It is the only choice. It is the most important pop album since Lady Gaga, came out in 2008. This one took over culture. It basically represented a sea change in culture, in pop music. It feels like it's going to be the new direction for everything. It's the most forward-looking, and it just owned everything. Everything that happened in 2024 seems to be swirling around this album. And it wasn't even a monster seller. It wasn't like a Taylor Swift or a Morgan Wallen selling album where, sells 5 million copies in a year or whatever. It just dominated the conversation from the moment it came out until today, until the critics all put it as their number one album. And I know why they did, because I think everyone always was rooting for Charlie XCX ever since she came out, 2014. Um, she wrote some huge hits, Fancy. She had Boom Clap, which was really her only big hit in America. And then she took a left turn into hyperpop, kind of was on the periphery. Like she was always there making pop music, didn't really sell in America, but I think her influence was always felt. And everyone kind of wanted her to come back. She made a stab at more of an accessible pop album with her 2022 album Crash, which, people were like, okay, this is pretty good, but like maybe too much pop. This time, she finally balances the hyper pop with the pop with her. She's a great songwriter. She proved that many years ago. She went into hibernation or whatever, but now she shows off the rainbow of her talents, the songwriting, the ability to channel, hyperpop into a palatable substance that everybody can relate to. She finally puts in some of her own life experiences, her, learned experience, things about, maybe she wants to have a baby now, things about, feuding with other pop stars, like finally lets you into Charlie XCX. The critics just lapped it up. And yeah, I mean, I get it. It's super dancey, it's super fun, it's super poppy, it's kind of mean and vain and combines like all the elements of the current pop scene into one just impenetrable, danceable, um, monolithic pop album that feels like it's going to change music culture. Maybe not for the better for some people, but I think it's just a monster. It is a pop juggernaut, and really, I guess there was a time where it wasn't my favorite album of the year, but then I listened to it like 7, 8 times, and I was like, yeah, this just feels like it has the most import. It's the biggest deal, and it's just fun to listen to. Like at no point was I, like dreading any of this. Like you just listen to it, and you listen to it again, and you want to dance, and you want to have fun, and I don't know. I think it's great. I wasn't a huge Charlie XCX fan. I think probably I liked Sucker more than any of her hyperpop stuff, but this finally reached me on a different level. And yeah, I think it's the best. It's 4.5 stars, not quite five, but for a modern pop album, it's way up there, probably top three since the 21st century. I don't know. It's really good.
All right. Well, there you go. Those are our favorite records of the year. I think both of our lists are representative of what people would expect from us.
Yeah, they're true to who we are. There's giant surprise here. There's no you picking Brat in your top 25. There's no me having Adrian Lanker in my top 25. It's status quo, but
Yep.
I think it's solid.
Well, hopefully you go check out some of those picks that you're not familiar with, and let us know what your favorite records of the year are in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and there's more videos coming. You're gonna get our top 25 songs of the year. We're gonna get our expanded lists all the way to the rest of our top hundreds, and there's a tier list video of other publications lists that may come before this or after this. I think it's going to come after this at this point. And our Patreon list, the top 100 of people in our Discord community. And yeah, and then after that, we'll see you in 2025. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.